This video is brought to you by StoneAgeGamer.com. It's where I go for my gaming accessories, systems, and games. So be sure to check out StoneAgeGamer.com, link in description. How's it going, guys? This is John with Gamester81.com. This episode, I'll be reviewing the brand new RetroN 5 system by Hyperkin. Comes out June 6th, 2014 in North America, I believe in Europe. It's going to come out later this year, August, September sometime. Retail value is 140 US dollars. In pounds, it's about 120 pounds it's going to be retailing for. And this is technically the fourth RetroN system by Hyperkin. The first one, RetroN 1, or just the RetroN, came out and that could play NES games. The RetroN 2 came out and it could play NES games and Super Nintendo games. RetroN 3 could play Super Nintendo games, NES games, and Genesis games. So in this one, obviously, you can play a lot more systems, which I'm going to go and dive into here in a second. So each system that Hyperkin has released has evolved and gotten bigger and better. So I give much respect to Hyperkin for doing that. Hyperkin's been around for a while, doing a lot of clone systems, and they've had issues with the RetroN 3, with some compatibility issues with some games, some hardware issues. A lot of people complain about the wireless controllers, and they kind of look like Genesis controllers, but people weren't really big fans of that, playing Super Nintendo games or NES games, etc. But what this can play, in case you guys didn't know, it can play NES games, it can play Famicom games, it can also play Super Nintendo games, Super Famicom games, Game Boy Advance games, Game Boy Color games, and if you have a power-based converter, it can also play Sega Master System games. So there is just a ton of capabilities for this system. It comes in two different variation colors for now that I'm aware of. It comes in, what I have here is kind of a gray with a black top, purple flaps, kind of undertone. Then it also comes, I kind of like this, I prefer this because it reminds me of like classic Super Nintendo console. It also comes in all black, in case you guys prefer all that. It comes with one control remote, it comes with an HDMI cable, and power adapter. So you can play AC adapter, so you can play the system, obviously. Yes, I did say HDMI. It does play, and supposedly it can convert the games into 720p high definition, and it looks pretty solid. And they claim that it's going to be compatible with every game, where in the past clone systems, a lot of the games, especially the FX chips games for the Super Nintendo, there were some compatibility issues, whereas this one, there's not. The Hyperkin claims that it has 100% capability. What's really cool is there's an SD slot in the back of the system where there will be firmware updates. So just in case there is a compatibility issue through an SD card and a download, you can actually patch that, which is really sweet. So that's really good to know as well. The controller kind of looks funky. I haven't really messed around with it, to be honest, at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an unboxing, show you what's included in this set. I'll do an overview, talk about the system overview of what it can do. Then I'm going to test some games. We're going to do some compatibility. Obviously, I don't have every game and every library. I wish I did, and that would take me forever to test. But I know this system has been in development for a while. In fact, I first learned about this RetroN 5. It was a RetroN 4 initially, back in maybe mid to late 2012. And I know they've been working on it for a while, and people are upset because this system has had some delays. And I don't think it's anything with necessarily Hyperkin was expecting, but there were delays. Hyperkin announced it was going to be released last year, and didn't come out, obviously, until now. And then they initially, the price was going to be $100, not $140. So they increased the price by 40%. Obviously, a lot of people got upset because they had pre-orders, and now they had to pay $40 more as a big upgrade. So I guess the million-dollar question is the system worth it? Is it worth paying $140 to play? How is the compatibility? How is the high-definition graphics? But not only that, so not only does it play high-definition graphics, let me just read off the back here, kind of show you what all it's capable of doing. So it's obviously, I mentioned before, it can play with all these different systems. Its graphical interface, a brand new GUI menu, it gives you access to features and abilities to customize your entire gaming experience on screen. There's actually, the controller has a home button, which is really cool. And there's an HDMI output, save slates. You can actually save games. So if you have a game that maybe the battery has died and you can no longer save it, there's actually storage capabilities in the system where you can actually save it onto the system, which I think is pretty awesome. First time that's ever happened in a system. Video enhancement, you can actually, there's a variety of different features, filters, you can shades, effects you can add to the game. You can even add, it says right here, scan lines, which is kind of cool. Audio enhancement, it actually produces a smoother, crisper sound output through the HDMI. There's cheats, so there's built-in cheats with some such games, a lot of games that will have cheats, almost like a built-in game genie. That's pretty awesome. Wireless controller technology, range up to 30 feet. Now, I heard that was going to be Bluetooth. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case with these controllers. I'll test them out, see how they work. It only does come with one controller. At this point, I'm not sure if Hyperkin plans on selling other controllers separately. However, there are outputs, or there's actually areas where you can actually plug in classic controllers into here, just much like the RetroN 3 and the other RetroNs. Original controller ports, and of course, like I mentioned just now, and 100% capability is what they're saying. So without any further ado, I'm going to unbox it, show you what's included. So here is the box itself. Hard to tell in the video, but it's got a nice matte finish, and then the controller and the system itself, it's glossy. It's pretty nice. Feels good. What else can I say about this? It says wireless. It's got the different ports. Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, NES, Genesis, Famicom, of course. And let's look at the back. It is got all these different languages. You got looks like English and French and Spanish, whatnot. I do want to mention also this is PAL compatible, so it doesn't matter which region you live in, the system will work wherever you live. So that's always a good thing in case you're wondering that. Let's open this up, see what's inside. So here is the system itself. Voila. Okay, so let's look at the controller first, because I'm really curious about the controller. Because to be quite honest with you, this thing looks weird to me, a little different. And I give Hyperkin kudos for creating something different looking. And there's no D-pad. This is an analog click joystick. Now, I'm not quite sure how this is going to work with retro games, because a lot of retro games are just up, down, left, right, 4 directions, not 8 directions. But we'll see how that works. I'll let you know. Looks like it does run off a lithium battery that you cannot remove unless you have these small screws. I probably wouldn't recommend doing that. It's got a mini USB port. I imagine that's how you charge it. Kind of looks like those kind of parts actually remind me of, and this right here, it looks like you can play it with 4 players, connect these. Kind of reminds me of like a PS3 or a PS4 remote, where you can, charge it, whatnot. I don't know how long the battery lasts on this thing. This does have a 30-foot range, but again, I don't know how long the battery does last. That'll be interesting. Got some bumpers here as well. I was curious about that. These look like, I'm not sure what these buttons do. I'll test these, but they're probably maybe left, right triggers as well, possibly. Start, select, you have a home button. There's a home menu. I'll show you that later in the review. These are different buttons here. They feel decent. They click decent. This doesn't actually push down or anything like that. You can see it's already on. I don't think there's necessarily on or off, which could be a good or bad thing. You just don't want to waste batteries. I'm sure if you sit there for a while, it goes idle and shuts down. But yeah, it kind of feels light to me. I'm not saying it feels cheap, but just kind of feels light to me, a little lighter than what it looks. But I do like the width of it all. I think, I have big hands, and it does fit my hands fairly well. So that's always a positive thing. What else do you get? You get HDMI cables. Always handy. It looks like it's a pretty long one too, which is always nice. Here's your mini USB to charge your controller. And here is your AC adapter. Obviously, you'll need that. And oh, this is cool. These look like different adapters for your power adapter. So in case you live in Europe or wherever, those are adapters for it. So Hyperkin was smart. They made a simple system, or a single system, I should say, that they can ship anywhere in the world. They don't have to just customize it, which is nice. So here's the system itself. You got instructions, which is nice to read. I'm not really one for instructions, but it's always good to have them in case you have any questions, right? Here is the system, what it looks like. And yeah, it's kind of good weight. It's pretty well built, pretty sturdy, not bad. Let's see, look on the back here. You have your AC adapter. This is your mini USB right there, and this is the HDMI. This is where you would plug it into your TV. And SD card, as I mentioned before, you can use an SD slot to, firmware updates, or if you want to do, you can do screen capture pictures and download to your SD card, which is nice. And it looks like on the back here, it looks like this little crevice right here is to store your controller. Okay, but you will only store one controller. These are the different slots at Famicom, NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis. One thing I do want to test right now is one complaint that people have had about various clone consoles in the past is that grip, the games carts, and people are concerned that it could damage the game. So I brought some examples. Let's test a Famicom game. We're going to plug it in here like so. Snaps in pretty good. Let's see how hard it is to get out. Ooh, yeah, it does kind of grip it pretty good, more than I would like. Dang, yeah, that definitely grips it pretty good. I'm not saying it's going to cause any damage to your games, but it does have a pretty decent grip. Let's check out the NES and see if that's any better. Yeah, NES is definitely better than the Famicom. Famicom was a little ridiculous, but yeah, NES is not bad. Let's check out Super Nintendo. And Super Nintendo, not that bad. Plugs in, doesn't really feel like it snaps in very well. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, not bad. And then let's do Genesis. And Genesis has a pretty firm grip as well once you're in there. So I'd say, oh, I got one more, of course. We're going to do Game Boy Advance. Yeah, that's nothing. That's just plugs in there. Now, so I mentioned that this is compatible with Game Boy Color games. I'm assuming these games should plug in here like so, and that will work. If that's not the case, and of course I'm going to test this out, but if that's not the case, then what you probably have to get is Super Game Boy. You can get these really cheap. I paid $5 for mine, and you just plug it in here, and that would play Game Boy Color games or Game Boy games as well. It does also play Super Famicom games, and they just plug in like so. Okay, so that's just plugged into the Super Nintendo slot. And in case you have some Sega Master System games, which I think is a completely underrated system, great system, you could get a power-based converter like this. You plug it in, it fits. In the game, we actually plug in the very top like so, and you can play Sega Master System games. This doesn't play Game Gear games, which is a little disappointing. I like Game Gear. I don't think Game Gear gets much love, but perhaps the RetroN 6 will. Perhaps RetroN 6 may have a TurboGrafx 16 Hue card slot. That'd be pretty awesome, because I think another underrated retro system is the TurboGrafx 16. Well, guys, that concludes part 1 over my review over the RetroN 5 system. In part 2, I'll put a link here. I'm going to review and do some testing. I'm going to test the capability of games for the system, as well as share my final thoughts and opinion about the RetroN 5. Appreciate you guys watching, guys. I really also appreciate you guys liking this video, sharing this video. Subscribing is always great as well. If you want to keep in touch, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch TV. I'll put links below, as well as my website, Gamester81.com. We'll see you guys soon. Happy gaming. Take care.